All right, shalom to the elect of Israel. I want to start by giving all the praises, honor, and glory to whom it rightfully belongs, which is Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakwadash. What I said was all the praises, honor, and glory belongs to Yahweh, who was the Heavenly Father, in the name of his Son, Yahweh Shai, who is the Messiah, in the name of the Holy Spirit, which in Hebrew is Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone and Ruel. Peace, blessings, and salutations to the elect. And this is just a lesson I wanted to do regarding, you know, this conversation between Saul, all right, which was a king, a wicked king of Israel, right? But this conversation is between Saul and basically a witch, okay? But the point is, in this account, this proves that this is another piece of evidence showing you that hell, aka some place you go to and burn if you're wicked after you die, is you know real. This account proves that it's not real. Okay, and, this conversation that was being had here. So I just want to read down to the point. Okay, and this is for the elect. So yeah, man. So here we go. This is in the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 28, starting in verse 1, right? And it says, "And it came to pass in those days that the Philistines gathered their armies together for warfare to fight with Israel." All right? And the Philistines are, Hamites, heathens, okay? Hamite heathens. That right here, they were getting ready to fight with Israel, right? It says, "And Achish said unto David, Know thou assuredly that thou shalt go out with me to battle, thou and thy men. And David said to Achish, Surely thou shalt know what thy servant can do. And Achish said to David, Therefore will I make thee keeper of mine head forever." Verse 3. Now Samuel was dead. Now Samuel was a prophet. All right, he was a prophet of Israel. Okay? And at this time that we're reading the scriptures, the prophet Samuel had died. Right? So it says, "Now Samuel was dead, and all Israel had lamented him." So keep that in mind. At this point in the scriptures, the prophet Samuel had passed away. It says, "And all Israel had lamented him and buried him in Ramah, even in his own city. And Saul had put away those that had familiar spirits and the wizards out of the land." All right, now familiar spirits, okay. The Hebrew way of saying that is awab, and it says water skin bottle necromancer. Right, now necromancer means one who evokes the dead. Okay, bringing up someone, basically someone who tries to bring up the spirit of you know deceased people. All right. So it says at this time, Saul had put away those kinds of people, that have familiar spirits and wizards out of the land. Okay? Let me look at the Hebrew word for wizards for edification. All right, 1 second. All right, the way wizards in the Hebrew is Yedinayah. Okay. Wait 1 second, the internet is going slow. Okay, it says a knower, one who has a familiar spirit. Okay, so basically like the same thing. So Saul, right, he had put these types of people out of the land. Okay, at this time. Verse 4. "And the Philistines gathered themselves together and came and pitched in Shunem. And Saul gathered all Israel together, and they pitched in Gilboa." So the Philistines are about to go to war with the Israelites, and Saul is king, right? Verse 5. "And when Saul saw the host of the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart greatly trembled. And when Saul inquired of Yahweh, Yahweh answered him not, neither by dreams, nor by Urim, nor by prophets." All right, so Saul, he had seen the Philistines, their army, and he got afraid. All right, and so he went to go inquire of the Most High. Basically to see what was going on. What he should do. Things like that. But the Lord didn't answer him by anything. He didn't answer him by a prophet, as it says, not by a dream, not by Urim, or nor by prophets. So the Lord wasn't, because Saul, he was wicked. Okay, so the Lord didn't answer him. Verse 7, it says, Then said Saul unto his servants, Seek me a woman that hath a familiar spirit, that I may go to her and inquire of her. And his servant said to him, Behold, there is a woman that hath a familiar spirit at Endor. Now Endor, it was a basically like a town, kind of, but it's if you look on an ancient map, it's situated in the area of Galilee. Okay. Verse 8, And Saul disguised himself and put on other raiment, and he went and 2 men with him, and they came to the woman by night. And he said, I pray thee, divine unto me by the familiar spirit, and bring me him up whom I shall name unto thee. So even though Saul had put all these types of people out of the land, the Lord, the Lord hadn't, the Lord wasn't dealing with Saul basically anymore, right? So he, but Saul, and they were, and Israel was about to go to war with the Philistines, and Saul was afraid. So since the Lord wasn't answering him, he wanted to go to a woman with a familiar spirit, one who could invoke, someone from the dead, right? Verse 9, it says, And a woman said unto him, Behold, thou knowest what Saul has done. And so he disguised himself, right? That's why she's telling Saul, Do you know what Saul hath done? Okay? Because they're disguised. It says, verse 9, And the woman said unto him, Behold, knowest thou what Saul hath done? How he hath cut off those that have familiar spirits and the wizards out of the land? Wherefore then layest thou a snare for my life to cause me to die? And Saul sware to her by Yahweh, saying, As Yahweh liveth, there shall no punishment happen to thee for this thing. Then said the woman, whom I shall bring up unto thee. And he said, Bring me up Samuel. So he's asking for the woman to basically conjure up the prophet Samuel, who had passed at this point, right? It says, verse 12, And the woman saw Samuel, she cried with a loud. It says, And when the woman saw Samuel, she cried with a loud voice. And the woman spake to Saul, saying, Why hast thou deceived me? For thou art Saul. And the king said unto her, Be not afraid, for what sawest thou? And the woman said unto Saul, I saw gods ascending out of the earth. Gods also going into meaning spirits, right? Verse 14, And he said unto her, What form is he of? And she said, An old man cometh up, and he is covered with a mantle. And Saul perceived that it was Samuel, and he stooped with his face to the ground and bowed himself. Alright, so she conjured up Samuel here, okay? And Saul was asking, what form is he? And she described him, and Saul bows. Verse 15, it says, And Samuel said to Saul, Why hast thou disquieted me? Disquieted meaning disturbed me. Because when scriptures say, when you go back into the spirit world, you're basically at peace. You're at rest in the spirit world. Okay? It says, Why hast thou disquieted me to bring me up? And Saul answered, I am sore distressed. So Samuel why you disturb me to bring me up? And Saul answered, I am sore distressed, for the Philistines make war against me, and the Most High is departed from me, and answereth me no more, neither by prophets, nor by dreams. Therefore I have called thee, that thou mayest make known unto me what I shall do. Okay? So, he basically Saul, had this woman bring up Samuel because the Lord wouldn't answer him. Alright? And Saul was going to war, so he was afraid and he wanted to know what to do. Look what Samuel said, right? Verse 16. It says, Then said Samuel, Wherefore then dost thou ask of me, seeing Yahweh is departed from thee, is become thine enemy? And Yahweh hath done to him as he spake by me. For Yahweh hath rent the kingdom out of thine hand and given it to thy neighbor, even to David. Okay, so Samuel like, look, why are you gonna ask? Why are you asking me? If the Lord depart from you and come your enemy, why are you asking me stuff? You know. And he goes on to tell him, the Lord, took the kingdom out of his hand, gave it to David. Verse 18, and the point is in 19, but it says, because thou obeyest not the voice of Yahweh, nor executest his fierce wrath upon Amalek, therefore hath Yahweh done this thing unto thee this day. So see, Saul had built up a track record, and this is the Lord getting him back for it. All right. Now the point is in verse 19. It says, moreover, Yahweh will also deliver Israel with thee into the hand of the Philistines, and tomorrow shalt thou and thy sons be with me. Yahweh also shall deliver the host of Israel into the hand of the Philistines. All right, now the point was in verse 19. So I'm going to read it again. It's 1 Samuel chapter 28 and verse 19. Moreover, Yahweh will also deliver Israel with thee into the hand of the Philistines. So Samuel was basically letting Saul know that, look, the Lord going to give Israel into the hand of the Philistines. Then he says, and tomorrow shalt thou and thy sons be with me. But wait, wasn't the prophet Samuel, wasn't he dead at this point? So what did he mean when he says, and tomorrow shalt thou and thy sons be with me? Meaning tomorrow Saul and his sons would die, right? Now, keep this in mind, right? Saul was a wicked king, right? And Samuel was a righteous prophet. So Samuel was a righteous man and Saul was a wicked man. Now, the way Christianity teaches you about hell being real, right? And we know that in different verses and things in the Bible, the word hell is mentioned, but you have to understand the actual meaning of it and what it's saying in totality. But dealing with this right here, right? If since Samuel was a righteous man and Saul was a wicked man, and the way Christianity teaches you that when you die, if you're righteous, you go to heaven, and if you're wicked, you go to hell, right? If that's true, then why did the righteous prophet Samuel, right, who, if Christianity's version of hell is real, would be in heaven, why did the righteous prophet Samuel tell the wicked King Saul, tomorrow him and his sons would be with him where he is? Why did he say that? Okay. Shouldn't the wicked King Saul have gone to hell? And this is something that Christians don't get. They love to push that hell doctrine, which is false. Okay, because what about this right here? All right. Samuel basically told Saul, tomorrow you're gonna be the same place I am. All right, which is where? In the spirit world. That's where you go to after you die. All spirits. Let me get that one in Job. This is the book of Job, chapter 3. And starting in verse 11. Why died I not from the womb? Because Job was saying all of this because he caught hell, right? It says, why died I not from the womb? Why did I not give up the ghost when I came out of the belly? Why did the knees prevent me? Or why the breasts that I should suck? For now should I have lain still and been quiet, I should have slept, then had I been at rest, with kings and counselors of the earth, which built desolate places for themselves, or with princes that had gold, who filled their houses with silver, or as in hidden untimely birth I had not been, as infants which never saw light. So basically, Job is saying, he, because all the hell he was catching, all the the affliction and adversity he was catching, he wished he had been dead, right? So he says, verse 17, there the wicked cease from troubling, and there the weary be at rest. There the prisoners rest together, They hear not the voice of the oppressor. So, in the spirit world, the wicked, all right, the righteous and the wicked are up there. They go to the same place after they die. Okay, whether you're a righteous person or you're a wicked person, after you die, you go to the spirit world. You know, like one of the elders said, when somebody asked him, "How do you get to heaven?" He basically said, "All you have to do is die," and that's just the truth. All right, this is Ecclesiastes chapter 12 and verse 7. Then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto the Most High who gave it. Okay? You know? So, whether you're a righteous man or a wicked man, you go back to the spirit world after you die. Whether you're a righteous woman or a wicked woman, you go back to the spirit world after you die. All right? So, there's no such thing as some hell you go to after you die if you're wicked. The Lord did not create that. All right, as another brother said, if he did, why wasn't it mentioned in Genesis, the first chapter, when the Lord was creating the world? You see? Now, this is the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, starting in verse 19. It says, "For that which befalleth the sons of men befalleth beasts. It's like even one thing befalleth them, which is death. As the one dieth, so dieth the other." Right? Yea, they all have, man and beast both die, right? It says, "Yea, they have all one breath, so that a man hath no preeminence above a beast, for all is vanity. All go unto one place," talking about the grave. "All are of the dust, and all turn to dust again." Verse 21, here's the point. "Who knoweth the spirit of man that goeth upward?" Right? And it says, "In the spirit of the beast that goeth downward," but the point is where it says, "Who knoweth the spirit of man that goeth upward?" Because when you pass away, you go back to the spirit world, right? And once again, it just said man. It didn't say righteous or wicked man. And don't try to say, but it's talking about a righteous. It's just by default talking about a righteous man. No, it's talking about all mankind by default. Okay, because that's what it is, as we read in Ecclesiastes 12 and 7. All right, it didn't tell you which type of man. All right, but it lets you know that, when you pass, your spirit goes back to the spirit world. Okay, it says, "In the spirit of the beast that goes downward to the earth." Okay, because when animals pass, they just come right back. Reincarnation. But I wanted to bring out that conversation in 1 Samuel 28 between Saul and Samuel, right? Which is further concrete proof that hell does not exist. Okay, hell is a bad condition or the grave. All right, and but you just gotta know the context that the scriptures are talking about when it mentions it. All right, so hey, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying to the elect, giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone that were well. Peace, blessings, and salutations to the elect. Shalom to the elect.